Welcome back to Studio Chatter. You might need some help from a therapist, but you're afraid of what your neighbor might say. Let's solve that problem. Please welcome family therapist Maddie Talbert with Maple Mountain Therapy and Life Coaching to our table. Welcome, Maddie.
Oh, hello. Hello,
so
ladies.
It's good to have you back. We have had you before and we love you. So thank
you.
you.
Thanks for having me back.
That opening, though, makes me cringe a little bit. Like, I'm worried about what the neighbor will think or what my sister or brother might think if I'm in therapy. Is that still
It's still a stigma. We all think that it's some kind of weakness. If we go to a therapist, then we're weak. And that we should be able to figure out our problems by ourselves.
Or we shouldn't have problems, right?
Yeah. And if we do, like, we're smart enough to figure this out, I shouldn't have to go to someone else. So what I try to tell my clients is I go to someone to cut my hair. And I go to someone to do my taxes. And if my car breaks down, I go to a mechanic because they have specialties in that area and I don't. And so going to a therapist is just going to someone who's spent their life and their education in that area. And it's like going to any other specialist that we go to in our lives. And we all do that.
Well, and I look at it too, Maddie, that you have a lot of tools that I've never studied or I've never gained or learned. Why would I not want to go?
Right.
If there were some tools I needed, go get them
Right.
from you.
Can you imagine going out and trying to fix your own car? You know,
No, we have tried to do that this past week, even changing out a battery, and that was tricky. So I can't imagine changing a life trauma.
Right.
Or, maybe just something simple or a divorce or whatever it may be. There's
Right.
people who can help you get through those
And I've been doing this for
successfully.
33 years. So this is where I spend my time, my education, and I haven't spent on other areas. So it's just like, just go to someone who can use that, help you with that service that you need.
So do you think it's changed in those 33 years? And do you think that the problem, like the stigma, is it more nationwide? Do you feel it's more culture, like more so in Utah? I mean, how do you feel like that's changed for you over the years?
Well, it's certainly not as bad as it was 30 some years ago. We've improved. And in fact, I think the younger generation is better than the older generation. I see some children, young children, like 11, 12-ish, and they are just happy as pie to come to their therapist. And teenagers, it's the older people that still have more of the stigma. The youth are a lot more open to it. So.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah, I mean, and that's why I asked the question, because I feel like the older generation is so reserved with a number of topics, and that the younger generation, they're just much more open. I mean, with social media, they're kind of just happy
too open sometimes.
Yes, happy to expose a lot of things.
Right, which kind of connects me. Do we need it more now than we did before? With the evolution of technology and different things, do you feel like that is a thing?
Yes, we have a lot more people suffering from anxiety than I've ever seen. This day and age, and there's such a divide, and people don't know where to turn. We have one parent sometimes that feels this way, and the other parent that feels the opposite. They go to school, they hear different things. Some of it's true, some of it's not. They don't know where to turn.
There's so much information being filtered to us that I would imagine that's causing, I don't know, just hardships with everyone.
They go on social media and they think that all these people are beautiful. Then we find out they're all using filters. They don't really look like that. But these kids don't know that. And they think, I don't look that good. So their self-esteem suffers. There's just so much more than we ever had to deal with when we were young.
Yeah, I imagine so.
Maddie, do you feel like you have a specialty or a specific area of focus that?
Well, I do a lot with anxiety and depression, but lately I've been doing a lot of with trauma work because I've been certified with EMDR therapy.
So tell us a little bit about what that is.
So I brought a book from Francine Shapiro. She is the founder of EMDR therapy. And it has just changed the whole therapy world.
Really?
So it's kind of like science and psychology have merged because we know so much more about the brain and how it works. And so what she found out and developed was that during our sleep, we have REM sleep, REM.
Okay.
Rapid eye movement sleep. And that is the time that our brain does a lot of healing. Because, you know, when you were younger, don't go to bed mad. You know, we were told that when you first got married, never go to bed
Worst
mad.
advice I ever got.
Yes.
It really is true.
It's the worst advice ever.
Thank you. I thought we
Because-
would stay up fighting forever. I'm like, I just want to go to sleep.
And it just gets worse.
I'll be
I know. And then I wake up, I'm like, I'm not even mad now.
Right, you don't even remember the next day. So if you get a good night's sleep, the REM sleep actually heals a lot of trauma from the day. So we suffer traumas every day. Road rage, or someone cuts us off, right? Someone says something that hurts our feelings. I
Right.
mean, every day we have small things that really hurt us. Well, during that REM sleep, and it's not, if you have an Apple Watch or something that tells you how much REM sleep. And it's not a long portion of your sleep. Sometimes mine's 20 minutes, sometimes it's 40 minutes, hour and a half out of the
Out
whole
of
night.
your whole night?
Yes.
Is it
Interesting.
in a row or is it broken up?
Usually it's in a row,
Okay.
usually. But those people who do not go into REM sleep, that's when there's a problem. Or the people who do not give it enough sleep. You know what that does
Yes,
to you.
right.
So we know that sleep's important, but the REM sleep is actually healing the brain of trauma.
And how does it heal?
We don't know for sure. The scientists know that it is because our brain never turns off. You know, that's why we have dreams. But during that time, it's really technical, but there's a place in our brain that has an alarm that puts us in fight, flight, or freeze, you know?
Okay.
And then the hippocampus is the place where memory is stored. But the frontal lobe is where we have thinking and planning and organizing. And when all of those are in line, then our trauma gets healed. Those three things in order heal the trauma.
Wow.
But sometimes we all have had those situations in our life where something sticks and we don't know why. And so during EMDR, we ask the person, what are you here for? And they'll say, I just don't feel enough, like I'm good enough. I don't feel like I fit in, or I feel unlovable. And like, where did that come from? Because it is a constant recording in their mind that they feel that way.
Okay.
So during this therapy, we can actually go back and find out where that came from. They can identify it. I don't, but they can identify that. And then once we identify it, it can be healed through the rapid eye movement, just like the REM sleep. Only they do it in a therapist's office in a safe place. So they're with me and they're awake, and I do the rapid eye movement which is healing. So there's a dual awareness going on.
Like, what
So-
does that look
It makes
like?
sense.
Like a,
Yeah.
like this? Or
Yeah, it could
that's what I
be.
imagine.
Yeah, it could be. I use a little wand that goes back and forth because my fingers get so tired. You can tap and go back and forth. You can tap on knees. I like to do the eye movement mostly in my practice, but there's lots of different therapists that do different ways. But it's a really technical way, and you have to be trained. And so there's some therapists out there that say they do EMDR, but they haven't been trained. And so I've had a few clients that said, it didn't work for me. And so I said, well, let's try it. And they go, oh, well, I didn't do that before. Oh, I didn't do that. And it's because they haven't been with a trained therapist.
So that specifically is for trauma.
For trauma.
Okay.
But it's for, they first use it with veterans from war, because we know PTSD is huge.
Yeah.
And they would come back and they would be safe in their house, but they'd hear a firecracker or somebody would drop a book, and they could go right back to that time that they were on the,
Wow.
and they would feel the same emotions. And so when you have a trauma like that, not only do you remember, you feel like you're in the situation.
I had postpartum, and I do remember that. I got through it, but I was stuck on a certain pathway of thinking, and I don't know how I really got through it. I did go through a therapist, but different things. But just like thinking back to the thing that I was stuck on sometimes will bring about that same feeling. And now I'm like past it, so I feel it in a good space, but I do understand that. And if you haven't healed or processed it or done however
keep
it is,
going back
you
to
keep
that
going
space
back
for
and
years.
ruminating there. Yeah.
And it could be a huge thing like war. or a car accident, or your parents got divorced when you were small. It could be something huge, but it could be something that just you were bullied in school, or this really embarrassing time that you were speaking in class and everyone made fun of you. And you don't think that, I mean, that happens to most people, right? But some people heal from that and some people get really stuck. So I had a 48-year-old man who could not give a presentation in front of, he's the CEO of a company. And he goes, I cannot give a presentation. I shake, I sweat, and I just like give it to someone else to do. I cannot, and I don't know where that comes from. So during the therapy, it went back to his childhood and him giving a speech, and it didn't go well, and he got stuck with those same emotions, and those same feelings came up from him every time a speech was about to come up.
So amazing. Our brain, our mind.
So
is
once you
amazing.
determine the trigger, then you can work on the healing?
Yes. Yeah.
Wow.
The brain actually heals itself during this therapy.
So just like our body heals, like with a cut, like you're saying, I can see that our brain should be able to heal the same way.
It makes sense, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does.
I mean, I had a paper cut, and I can't even remember which finger it was on because it's totally healed up, right?
Fascinating.
And our cells heal. It just makes sense that our brain would have a way to do that too.
Yeah.
Maddie, if our viewers are finally feeling after this conversation, I think I'm ready. How would they contact you? Is your practice here in town?
Yes, but there's a lot of, I have quite a waiting list right now.
Do you?
But there's a
Okay.
lot of good therapists out
Okay.
there.
Where
But if
should
you
they
want
turn?
EMDR, you go into emdria.org, and it lists the trained therapist with EMDR.
Within our area.
And so some people find me through that.
Okay.
A lady the other day said, you were on the website and you're here in Spanish Fork, and I found you.
Okay. So that's
So-
a good source to go
You
to.
have a waiting
Besides
Thank you
you.
for sharing. Thank you for educating
Thank
us.
you. Bless your
We
heart.
love you, Maddie. Thank you.
Thanks.
Coming up on Studio Chatter, we've got one of our favorite guests with a lot to say. Stay with us.